All right, what's up, everyone? Another week, another Packers weekly discussion. That's just how it goes. So, this week, we're going to be discussing some prospects that the Packers have met with at least once. A couple of these guys they've met with multiple times, so twice. So, it clearly shows that they are interested in them and they want to find out more about these type of prospects that are in college right now and declaring for the draft. And we might take them in 2 weeks from now, but it just all depends on the person and if we like them or not. But we can start with the first guy, who is a linebacker, Zavin Collins out of Tulsa. So, Nick, you have some details on him, right?
Yeah, so first of all, as Blake said, Zavin Collins is a linebacker. And if you watch last week's discussion, we said that inside linebacker in this draft is a tier 2 position,
Yep.
which means they'll play, but they won't start for us. So Zavin Collins is 6'5", 259. So he's a big dude. And he's very athletic, though, because he actually played quarterback in high school, which is very interesting. And he went to a smaller school, Tulsa. And you could just see him. He could get to the quarterback. He could play off. And he's a very athletic, fun guy to watch. But I do not think he fits on the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
I'm going to be honest. He played a different type of defense over at Tulsa. He played a 3-3-5, which you don't see in the NFL. It's very interesting. It worked over at Tulsa, but we don't think it would work for the Packers, or at least I don't. I think Blake agrees. So he's a redshirt junior. So he redshirted his first year, but he actually started at Tulsa the next 3 years. And he was very consistent. He didn't just pop off this last year. He was actually good all his years that he was with Tulsa. And he's going to go in the first round. He might not even get to the Packers where they are at 29. Yeah. But if he does, I think we should lay off, and I don't think we should take him. Some weaknesses that he has is that he's just so big, so it's hard for him to switch direction really fast.
Yeah,
like he can run with someone, but once they cut, he's not cutting with them. And that's a problem that we have with him. Mm-hmm. And also, he can improve his pathway. Like, he doesn't always take the most direct route. He kind of runs like, I guess you could call it a banana turn to get where he needs to be, maybe, instead of just going straight there.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to add, Blake?
Yeah, so I was going to say, so I originally thought just like the athlete he is, him being in the middle, like the centerpiece of our defense, I was like, okay, interesting. The more I watched, the more I realized Colson, the amount of times I saw him play man coverage was very minimal. And when he did, it would be, a running back's running to the flat or a tight end's in the flat. So it's not like a running back or a tight end's running like an option route and making him cut or switch, directions really quickly. And at 6'5", 260, I worry about a guy like him trying to guard a running back who is really nimble in space. I just do. I think he has a 4.6 40, so he's not like, Devin White or other like Micah Parsons, even guys that are super, super fast where in the run, they're meeting the running back on the outside if it's like an outside zone or, it's going to the sideline. But so he's a little slow at accelerating, but I will say once he gets to his top speed, I mean, he pops off the screen. There's a play. He shot the gap. It was the ball was on the 2-yard line, and he saw a gap with the guard in between the guard and tackle, and he just shot it. I mean, and he looked like he got shot out of a cannon. So he definitely flashes that like immense. Just you see the potential right there, but I worry about him in coverage and actually having to guard like a running back or a tight end.
Would you think it's fair to say that he's good at reading the quarterback and like stepping into the passing lane? So like once the quarterback's ready to make the throw, but then he's not running with the receiver. So he's more like, I guess, a zone guy. Like he's kind of there. And he had 4 interceptions last season. He did. And he returned 2 of them for touchdowns.
Yeah, the thing is like the quality of those interceptions. Like one of them was like tipped directly up in the air and he caught it. And then a couple other ones were throws that were just like directly to him, and it's not like
that's what I'm saying. He steps in the passing lane. He's not staying with a guy running route for route, but he's getting in the lane.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like with those, like he was kind of just like in the middle of the zone and the quarterback threw it. It's not like he was like covering a guy directly and he jumped the route or anything. It was more of just like the quarterback didn't see him and it was more of like I don't want to say lucky, but it's not him being exceptional. It's more of the quarterback not playing well.
I was also disappointed with him filling holes on runs. I thought he could have done a better job. Like, if you watch the tape, he was not the best run stopper. He'd get there, but I feel like Blake Martinez, who the Packers used to have, was better at that. And like Blake Martinez led the league in tackles for multiple seasons, or at least the NFC. And I don't see Zavin Collins like that.
Interesting. I actually like Zavin Collins against the run. I mean,
you did?
Like if he gets like, I don't feel like many people are going to break too many tackles from him just because of how athletic he is. Like, if he does get his arms on you, like
it's more getting there. It's more
there. He's not the best at like block shedding. I feel like if he's engaged with a blocker, like he's not tossing them around. And then another thing that he is pretty good at is like they would use him as like an edge rusher from time to time. And I just feel like that doesn't really fit the need of what the Packers want. Like the Packers need a guy who can cover sideline to sideline.
We have Zardarius Smith coming off the edge. We have Gary coming off the edge. We don't need Zavin Collins coming off the edge.
Yeah, so we don't really need him off the edge. And I think he's better against the run. He's not like a sideline to sideline coverage guy. He can play sideline to sideline against the run, but not in man or anything. And we already have Chris Barnes, who's already pretty good at that. So he's a little redundant in that sense where you'd rather have a guy like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah who is good in coverage or someone else similar to that, as opposed to the Zavin Collins, the Micah Parsons of the world that are really good at blitzing because they both really are good at blitzing. And if they get in the backfield, like, yeah, the quarterback's going down, but I feel like we don't need like a guy who's a good blitzer at this point.
So I think we both agree that like Zavin Collins is a good player. He's athletic, but he just doesn't fit what the Packers need right now. And he's going to succeed wherever he goes because he's going to go where there's a need for him. But for us, we just don't need him, and we can do something else. He's not going to be available later in the draft, obviously. So in that first round, we just want to go with something more that we need.
Yeah, like if there was a linebacker who is available to us who's really good in coverage, I feel like that would complement our team better than a guy who's kind of a edge middle linebacker hybrid, maybe not the best against the pass and in man coverage. So that's it in Collins. He's not maybe the best fit for the Packers, but for another team that could use him, he would be a better fit. But a guy who is a better fit, Tevin Jenkins, the right tackle from Oklahoma State, Nassos. What are your thoughts on him?
So going back to those tiers I was talking about, Tevin Jenkins is an offensive tackle, as Blake said, and that's tier 1 for the Packers. So that means that he's starting day 1. And right now, if you look at the Packers' offensive line, since Bakhtiari is actually injured, he tore his ACL very late in the season. I'd say right now we have Turner at left tackle. We could put Runyon at guard, Jenkins at center, Lane Taylor at right guard, and then we need a tackle to come in and be that right tackle. Or another scenario that we could do is keep Jenkins at that left guard, still have Turner at left tackle, put Patrick at center, Taylor at right guard, and then if we don't get someone, we'd have like Yash Nijman start at right tackle. Yeah. So that's why I think this guy, Tevin Jenkins, is a very good pick. He's 6'6", 317 pounds. Yeah. And in our mock draft, we actually took him in the first round. He was available there. There's been mock drafts done on NFL Network that take him for the Packers, and he's definitely going to have to be either like a first round pick for the Packers, or if we traded up early in the second round, because he's not going to get to the Packers second round late pick. No. But this guy is very special, and he would start day 1, especially since Bakhtiari's injured. And I think he could still start once Bakhtiari comes back too. Just we move Turner to a guard position, and then we'd have Bakhtiari and Jenkins as our tackles. Yeah, so Lane Taylor, he's actually a free agent, and I don't think we've re-signed him yet. So, like, I think that even furthers the need for a guy. But I think the interior guys we would have with Bakhtiari injured would be Runyon, Lucas Patrick, and Elton Jenkins. Elton Jenkins can play anywhere, but typically in the inside. But I think that, again, like shows we do need more O-line help, and it is like a pressing need. And then Tevin Jenkins, so he played right tackle at Oklahoma. His pass blocking is pretty insane, honestly. So he, I believe, only allowed
1 or 2 sacks for 2 straight years, which is pretty insane.
Yeah.
Not many pressures either. And in the run, he's very aggressive. He's not like a complete mauler, but like you get that sense where like
He buries the man he's up against.
if he's blocking
buries
a guy, like he's trying to, he's trying to push them into the stands. Like that's his goal. And there's a couple times where he actually does that. In the Texas game against Joseph Asai, who's supposed to be a second, maybe late first or even early third, but probably second rounder.
Yeah, he's in that range.
He got him pretty good a couple times on the run where he was just blocking him. And yeah, so he would fill a need there. And then a lot of people say actually that he might project better as a guard just due to his skills. His feet aren't his feet lag behind his upper body a little bit. So
because he's very athletic up top. Like there's no doubting
he's
that.
a force.
He's very athletic up top.
6'3", so like obviously the dude is massive, but so people are saying or projecting that he would almost be a better guard, and you're like, okay. So we have Elton Jenkins, Billy Turner, and Tevin Jenkins, who could all potentially rotate between guard and tackle. So that just adds another layer of versatility for the Packers if they were to take a guy like him, in the sense that they'd have 3 dudes that you're comfortable playing more than 2 positions, which is kind of unheard of.
Well, the Packers are good with that. They like moving their linemen around. And linemen, as I've said, they get injured. They do. And
it happens,
they're usually Bakhtiari's out for a while, but usually they're just sometimes the Packers get injured for a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, but you don't even notice. Rodgers is still protected because we have guys that can shift around and play different positions, and that's very important. A weakness for Jenkins, because we've been talking about how good he is.
Yeah.
A weakness is they're saying his arms are short, which
they're a little
obviously is important for a lineman, because these longer guys who can like just kind of get around him, that's going to be a problem. These pros who have been working just at the beginning, but I feel like he can learn to stop them. And once he goes up against the competition, and like if we're throwing him in there right away, you might see a little bit of a learning curve early, but I think he'll be that guy. Like midseason, you won't have to worry about him, and he'll be protecting Rodgers. And then also in the run game, he's good.
Yeah, that's a good point. So his arms are a little shorter, and that's why people are saying like, hey, he might be better as a guard. And that's an interesting thought, because there will be times where like it'll look like he's getting beat. And he's just so physically dominant that he makes up for it. But like, will that happen at the next level? That's where the question comes in. Like his feet, like I mentioned, are a little slower than you would like compared to Rashawn Slater or Penei Sewell, where their feet are just rapid. Their feet and upper body are in harmony with how they're moving. So that's a bit of an issue. And then another thing is kind of along those lines. It's more of a minor, but like when he's blocking downhill, like if he has a guy right in front of him, like he's obviously insane, but getting to the second level, like he's not the best at just like meeting a guy in the second level if they're taking a different angle than straight ahead. So like getting to the second layer, he can do that well, but if there's a guy who he has to maybe make an awkward angle for, like he's not the best of the best athletes, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. He's still really good, but
Let me see if you agree with me here. I think to start the season until at least Bakhtiari's healthy, if we get him, he's going to have to start at tackle and then Turner at the other tackle. And then I'd say based on how he does, once Bakhtiari comes back, obviously Bakhtiari's going to be left tackle. Then we see if we want to move Turner to right tackle or keep Jenkins there. And then so we could either put Turner at tackle and Jenkins will stay in the lineup. He'll be a guard probably. Or we could leave Jenkins at tackle because Turner's main position is guard on the right side. Yeah. So like and Jenkins is tackle, but we just don't know at the next level if he's going to be able to keep up on the outside. He might just do better in the middle. Like, I mean, Elton Jenkins, he's very good. Yeah. And he's not like he can play outside, but we like him inside. He didn't allow one sack in his career. Yeah. 1 sack in his career.
Exactly. So overall, I think me and you can agree Tevin Jenkins would be awesome for the Packers. Whether they play him at tackle, which that's what it's looking like just due to the needs.
Especially to start the season.
Yeah, definitely to start the season, but he potentially has the versatility to play guard. We haven't seen it, but some of the traits are there. So yeah, Tevin Jenkins would be awesome. I hope we draft him. Tier 1 need. we can move on now to back to the defensive side of the ball.
Yep.
Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback, Florida State. Yes, Asante Samuel played for the Patriots, played for the Eagles. That's his dad, and his son's pretty special too. So he went to Florida State. He opted out last year. Do you have some details just about his height, weight, stuff like that?
Yeah, so Asante Samuel is 5'10", 180 pounds. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we met with him twice. Yeah, he was one of the guys we met with
he was
twice.
one of the guys that the Packers did meet with multiple times. So
yeah, so that means it must have gone well at least the first time.
They're interested, to say the least. Yeah.
And since the Packers just signed Kevin King again, we have cornerback listed as a tier 2 position, which means they'll play but won't start. But I wouldn't be surprised if he starts, maybe not week 1, but by the end of the season, if we got Asante Samuel Jr., I would not be surprised if it's him and Jair out there. What about you? Do you think he would start over Kevin King eventually, like this year?
I think at some point he probably would. I mean, obviously it depends, you know, is he –
I mean, we got Josh Jackson out of Iowa in the second round. He never turned out.
Yes, he did. But, yeah, I think he would honestly fit well. So – a couple of his strengths, I guess we can talk about. So he's a lot better in man than he is zone.
Yep.
And I mean, obviously teams run a lot of both, but I feel like we run more man than zone, just
we do,
generally speaking. And then another thing is he's pretty feisty. Like, he's a type of guy that has like the swagger that you like to see in a cornerback. Like, you know, he'll push a guy after the ball. He'll get in their face. He'll start celebrating.
I believe a scout actually said that he treats every ball in the air like it's going to be a fist fight with the wide receiver. I believe that's the word.
Yeah,
he's
pretty aggressive. Yeah, so that's what I like. That, like, I know one of our own corners does that, Jair Alexander, and obviously not every player that is feisty and aggressive is good, because
that's just not how it works.
There's the players that are a little too much of that, and they get a lot of PIs. But I like him in that sense that, you know, like, he comes ready to play, and he brings a certain level of energy that maybe some other guys don't have.
Also, when I was watching him, I noticed something that, like, if he does allow them to catch it, which is not very often, he tackles them right away. He's not letting them run down the field. Like, you'll see, it'll be like, catch down, you know, like, he's on right away. And that was very impressive for me, because sometimes, I mean, if you watch last season, the Packers had trouble tackling, and it's very frustrating to watch when you're like, oh my gosh, just tackle him. But Asante Samuel Jr., he's tackling them right away. And that's just exciting to watch. And then, as you said, like, he's very aggressive, but he's not drawing a ton of penalties. Like, he's aggressive in a good football way. He's not doing anything illegal. He's not holding very often. He's not getting too many PIs, but he wants that ball, you know?
Yeah. And then another thing I was going to mention too. So along with the tackling, like, there was a couple times where he'd like body slam a dude, like they'll catch it and they'll pick him up and like throw him down. And another thing was against Boston College. And do you know the running back who went to Boston College?
I do, A.J. Dillon.
Yes. So in the Boston College and Florida State game, they got into a couple of times where Asante Samuel had to tackle him, and he held pretty well against a dude that's obviously a lot bigger and heavier, taller, stronger, all of that. So he did a good job at actually, you know, like, against a guy who's way bigger than him, significantly bigger. He did a pretty good job of tackling. So I just want to say that out there as well. We can talk about a couple of the negatives. One being his ball skills aren't the best. So, like, plays on the ball.
He doesn't really watch the quarterback enough. He's so focused on who he's guarding. I think that's what they were saying about him. He kind of sometimes will take his eyes off the quarterback, and that's important to make a play on the ball, but he's more about making a play on the player he's guarding.
Yeah. I was more saying along the lines of, like, catching the ball. Like, it's not the most ideal when you see the ball, like, going right through his hands and stuff, which is, like, you know, not the best.
Yeah, no, we know all about dropped interceptions.
Yeah. I mean, I think every team, you know, there's a they play quarterback now.
The famous line, that's why they play defense.
Exactly. And the other thing too was like maybe not the best zone corner, which I mean Packers obviously play zone and they play man. So there could be times where he's maybe not doing the best because it is zone. But it's not huge. And then also against the run, he's not the best. Like you said, I think he's what 5'10", like 185. So he's a little undersized. So like when he's getting
180.
blocked, 180. So yeah, when he's getting blocked, he's not shedding blocks as well as you would hope. But again, it's not like a necessity to be a cornerback that can tackle.
And I don't see him starting week 1. So he'll have time to work with. I really don't. Even if we get him, I think he'll start by the end of the season. But I still see Kevin King in there. Kevin King's a good player when he's healthy and when his mind's right, which hopefully it is. I mean, obviously we've talked about it a billion times how that playoff game, but I still see Kevin King getting the opportunity to go out there and start over this rookie. But I do see him working up to a starter late in the season, and he'll have to compete. It's not like in college where he just kind of has the job. He'll have to compete for the job, which is always a good thing when players have to earn it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on Kevin King, that's a great point. Like throughout his career, he's really not been the healthiest dude. Like the first 2 years, he missed significant time, and the last couple of years he has been healthy. But nothing's guaranteed, especially with injuries. Players get injured.
And he'll play injured sometimes. Like he's just not 100% very often.
Yeah, I think he's missed probably like at least half the games that he's supposed to start for us. So that would be huge. And then if him or Alexander go down, like our third piece or outside corner would probably be Josh Jackson. So, we're a little thin depth-wise on that. Chandon Sullivan's the slot. So I think he would be a good get. You would probably have to take him in the first round or trade up in the second to get him. But Asante Samuel Jr. would be awesome in green and gold.
If Alexander goes down, we're definitely going to hope we get someone early in this draft.
We're in trouble.
We will be in big trouble if Alexander goes down. He is the glue for that defense.
Much agreed. And then moving on, we're going to go with another cornerback, Big Ten football player. So that's already awesome. Greg Newsome, who is a cornerback at Northwestern. And I believe, Nick, you have some details on him.
Yep. So he's a little bigger than Asante Samuel Jr. was. He's 6 feet tall, which Asante Samuel is 5'10", and he's also 192 pounds, which that's 12 more pounds. That's some meat.
He's a little bigger. Yeah.
The weight to height, it makes sense that he weighs more than Asante Samuel Jr.
Because he's still like, he's not Jalen Ramsey level, just jacked, but. Yeah.
Not yet. I mean, in that NFL weight room, they get pretty big.
Yeah, exactly.
Those first few years, they grow.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, talking about him a little more, so he can play cover 3 and man pretty well. So like that's a little good when you're comparing him to like the aforementioned Asante Samuel, who's mainly better in man, but Newsome's good in both man and zone, which is huge for versatility reasons.
Yeah, so he allowed 31.6% completion in 2020, and that's against all Big Ten teams because they didn't do versus other conferences this year. And obviously in the Big Ten, you got a very good top of the lineup, but then you don't have such a good bottom teams. But still, 31.6%. That's pretty good. They're only catching less than a third of the balls that are thrown his way.
Definitely. And then a couple of things with him too. So he's pretty sticky in coverage, honestly. Like there's times where he should have had a pick, but like it was either batted at the line of scrimmage or something like that. So that was kind of like frustrating to when I was watching him. I'm like, wow, he would have jumped that route if it just didn't get knocked down or whatever. So that's tough. And then another thing too is he has the ability. So Northwestern's defense was actually really good, and they played a lot of different schemes, whether that was split safety.
They were ranked at one point during this season.
No, their defense was really good, and he was actually a part of the team that made Justin Fields had not his best game. Now, I'm not going to say he had a terrible game because there was definitely COVID issues, but he was a part of the defense that stymied him a little bit and stymied other great quarterbacks that are in the Big Ten. So that's kind of a big plus that maybe other guys don't have when they're not facing the best of competition. Now, it's not the end all be all, but it's better than nothing is what I'm trying to get at.
Another thing that I really enjoyed when I was watching him that stood out to me was he was getting like when other teams ran the ball, he was going and tackling them. He was wrapping them up. And that's a big deal because once again, sometimes the Packers don't know how to tackle. And like even Jair Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, he'll just kind of lunge at the guy or throw his shoulder that way. He won't wrap him up. And Greg Newsome's not scared to get in there and wrap him up. And obviously that's college running backs. Now he's going to play the best running backs in the world. But I still see him getting in there with that confidence and wrapping up runners. So even when he's not making a play because he's not targeted, he can, or like on a pass play, he's still in there on the run plays. He can make the tackle. Like especially Kevin King, that he does not use his arms to tackle runners.
Yeah, definitely. And then another thing too is like he plays up at the line of scrimmage a pretty good amount. Like, yeah, he'll play off and stuff, but like there's a lot of plays where he's just like right in the receiver's face, which I kind of like. It's a little different than when we had Sharon Williams when he was a little older and he was like 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. And
yeah, no, once he came back to the Packers after, when he left and then came back, he was not playing right on that line ever.
Yeah. So I kind of like that too. And then I like his ball skills. Like when the ball's in the air, like making a play on the ball with the receiver there too, whether that's trying to catch it or just knock it, jar it loose. Like I think he does a pretty good job of doing that. And like fighting when the ball's in the air.
And 6 feet tall, that's a good height for a cornerback because usually a lot of cornerbacks are not like super tall. Like they're never like 6'3", but 6 feet tall is good because that means he can go up there and he can contest most of these wide receivers. He's not going to be going up against the best wide receiver on the other team, and he'll be able to contest them. He's not as aggressive as Asante Samuel Jr., but he's aggressive.
Yeah.
And I can see him going up and making some plays.
And then I did want to talk about like one of the negatives. So we mentioned aggressiveness, and so during the last 7 games, he had in his last 14 games 7 pass interferences, and I guess bottom line is he had a few more penalties than what you would hope. But I'm fine with it because like I'd rather my guy be too aggressive and like trying to make a play and like knock a receiver off his route than letting him walk all over you or not getting your hands.
You don't want anyone soft. No one's soft on our team.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like none of these dudes are going to be soft. I mean, but
we don't want stupid penalties. Like if you're going to be aggressive, you're going to get penalized occasionally, but don't get emotional penalties. You know what I mean? You don't want to, after the play's dead or just like because of an earlier play in the game, something's in your head. And I don't think he lets that stuff get in his head. He goes Northwestern, very smart school. I'm sure he's a smart guy, and he knows when to be aggressive and when not to be aggressive.
Exactly. But overall, like he would be an interesting corner again. All the guys we've talked about have been end of first round, maybe middle second. Maybe. Probably unlikely, but there's a lot of
They're not getting to the third round. They're not getting to the end of the second round.
Exactly.
Like, these are all guys the Packers could take at number 29. These are guys the Packers have met with, so they have at least some interest in these players. And also, just one more thing about Greg Newsome Jr. Just like Asante Samuel Jr., I don't think he's going to start right away. I think he might start by the end of the season, though, because of either health issues or just because he's a better player than Kevin King. We'll have to see. Obviously, Jair is going to be the number 1 corner the whole year. Hopefully, he plays every game.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's going to wrap up this stream for the Packers weekly discussion. So we talked over a few different prospects that the Packers have met with that we would be interested in getting.
Yep.
Next week, we're going to do a couple of things. So we're going to talk about should the Packers trade up in the draft? So trade from 29 to earlier in the first to maybe get a higher flight or higher rated target, or should they trade down to the second, get a few more picks, and get a guy that they could likely take at 29 and then take him later along with get other assets?
Because as we said, some of these guys will be available early second round. If this is who we're targeting and there's no one we want at 29, why not just move back a few picks, then maybe get a fourth or
Exactly.
fifth rounder with it? Because some people will want 29. They're like, oh my gosh, that guy's going to go off the board soon.
I
It's
want
not
that
going
guy
to last.
really bad. Yep.
Mhm.
And the Packers have done that. They did that 2017 with Kevin King. They traded back. And then I believe it was with the Browns, and then they had the first pick of the second round, took Kevin King. But, yep, that's going to wrap up this stream. Thank you all for watching, and we'll be back next week.